Hi, fourth graders. Welcome back to reading class. Happy Tuesday. I hope you had a great weekend and a great Monday. Since we have a short week this week, we do not have school on Friday. We decided that we were going to review a topic that we discussed earlier in the year, but it's something that is so important that we understand and we know how to use in our reading. So we are going to review talking about themes. So determining the theme, what's the theme of the story, and why is that important? First thing I wanted to show you, fourth graders, is this little trick to help us remember what is the theme. So in the word theme, it kind of gives us some reminders. In the word theme, we have the other word the. So I highlighted that in pink. And we also have an M, and we know that that M can stand for message or moral. So when you think about that word, you can think about it written out as the message or the moral. So this can be a trick to help us remember. So what is theme? Theme is a message or lesson from the story that you can apply to your own life. So if you have a struggle in your own life, you can think back to a story that you have read and you can think about that theme and it can help you. It's what the author wants you to learn from the story. And oftentimes the author won't explicitly state it. They're not just going to come out and tell you the theme of this story is or the message of this story is. You often have to infer the theme. So you have to think about, what are the characters going through? What does the author want me to know? What do they want me to take to my own life? In one story, there can be more than one theme. So today we're going to listen to a story called Rosie Revere Engineer. And our story has more than one theme. Our theme is not going to be specific to the story we are reading. You could read a lot of books that all have the same theme. And a theme is universal. It's going to apply to everyone who reads the book. All fourth graders, all teachers, all parents, anybody, it's going to apply to them. So, some common themes that you might find in stories that you have read, or as we read this list, you might think that you've read a book that has that theme, could be courage, hard work, never giving up, friendship, love, honesty, doing the right thing, or even being yourself. So, I'm sure you could think about some stories that you have read or that we've read together this year, fourth graders, that have those themes. So, when we talk about theme, we also need to talk about the main idea because sometimes students get these confused. So, the main idea of your text is a sentence that explains what the story is mostly about. So, we're going to take a look at the difference. So, your main idea is going to be specific to your story. It's going to answer the question, what is the story about? Most stories are not going to have the same main idea because your characters, your setting, your problem, your dialogue, all of that is going to be different and it's going to be specific about one story. So your main idea is not universal. It's going to be specific. Your theme is your message that you can learn from a story, and that's going to be universal. Lots of different stories are going to have the same theme, and it's going to be something that applies to everyone's life. Your theme is going to answer the question, what lesson does this story tell me about life? So your main idea might not be something that is the same for everyone, but your theme is going to be for everybody who reads the story. So, we are going to listen to a story called Rosie Revere Engineer, and we're going to discuss what is the theme and what is the main idea of the story. We're going to talk about how those are different. So, as you're reading the story, I want you to think of a couple of things. The first thing I want you to think of is, what does the author want me to know? What can I take from the story to my own life? And I also want you to think about your main idea. Who are your characters? What's your setting? What's your problem? What is going on in the story? What could you tell me so that I understand the book? So let's read this together and listen to it together.
Welcome to Fifi Story Time. Do you want to read this book with me? Don't forget to click the subscribe button for more. Rosie Revere, Engineer by Andrea Beatty. Illustrated by David Roberts. This is the story of Rosie Revere, who dreamed of becoming a great engineer. In Lila Greer's classroom at Blue River Creek, young Rosie sat shyly, not daring to speak. But when no one saw her, she peeked in the trash for treasures to add to her engineer's stash. And late at night, Rosie rolled up her sleeves and built in her hideaway under the eaves. Alone in her attic, the moon high above, Dear Rosie made gadgets and gizmos she loved. And when she grew sleepy, she hid her machines far under the bed where they'd never be seen. When Rosie was young, she had not been so shy. She worked with her hair swooping over one eye and made fine inventions for uncles and aunts, a hot dog dispenser and helium pans. The uncle she loved most was zookeeper Fred. She made him a hat to keep snakes off his head, from parts of a fan and some cheddar cheese spray, which everyone knows keeps the pythons away. And when it was finished, young Rosie was proud, but Fred slapped his knee and he chuckled out loud. He laughed till he wheezed and his eyes filled with tears, all to the horror of Rosie Revere, who stood there embarrassed, perplexed, and dismayed. She looked at the cheese hat and then looked away. I love it, Fred hooted. Oh, truly I do. But Rosie Revere knew that could not be true. She stuck the cheese hat on the back of her shelf, and after that day kept her dreams to herself. And that's how it went until one autumn day. Her oldest relations showed up for a stay. Her great-great-aunt Rose was a true dynamo who'd worked building airplanes a long time ago. She told Rosie tales of the things she had done and goals she had checked off her list one by one. She gave a sad smile as she looked to the sky. The only thrill left on my list is to fly. But time never lingers as long as it seems. I'll chalk that one up to an old lady's dreams. That night, as Rosie lay wide-eyed in bed, a daring idea crept into her head. Could she build a gizmo to help her aunt fly? She looked at the cheese hat and said, No, not I. But questions are tricky and some hold on tight, and this one kept Rosie awake through the night. So when dawn approached and red streaks lit the sky, young Rosie knew just how to make her aunt fly. She worked and she worked till the day was half gone, then hauled her cheese copter out onto the lawn to give her invention a test just to see the ridiculous flop it might turn out to be. Strapped into the cockpit, she flipped on the switch. The Helio cheese copter sputtered and twitched. It floated a moment and whirled round and round, then froze for a heartbeat and crashed to the ground. Then Rosie heard laughter and turned round to see the old woman laughing and slapping her knee. She laughed till she wheezed and her eyes filled with tears, all to the horror of Rosie Revere, who thought, Oh no, never, not ever again will I try to build something to sputter or spin, or build with a lever, a switch, or a gear, and never will I be a great engineer. She turned round to leave, but then great-great-aunt Rose grabbed hold of young Rosie and pulled her in close, and hugged her and kissed her and started to cry. You did it! Hooray! It's the perfect first try. This great flop is over. It's time for the next. Young Rosie was baffled, embarrassed, perplexed. I failed, said dear Rosie. It's just made of trash. Didn't you see it? The cheese copter crashed. Yes, said her great aunt. It crashed, that is true. But first it did just what it needed to do. Before it crashed, Rosie, before that, it flew. Your brilliant first flop was a raging success. Come on, let's get busy, and on to the next. She handed a notebook to Rosie Revere, who smiled at her aunt as it all became clear. Life might have its failures, but this was not it. The only true failure can come if you quit. They worked till the sun sneaked away to its bed. Aunt Rose tied her headscarf around Rosie's head and send her to sleep with a smile ear to ear, to dream the bold dreams of a great engineer. We can do it! At Blue River Creek, all the kids in grade 2 build gizmos and gadgets and doohickeys too. With each perfect failure, they all stand and cheer, but none quite as proudly as Rosie Revere. Hi everyone, thank you so much.
Okay, so let's talk about what is the main idea of our story.
Welcome to Baby Story Time.
So Rosie is an inventor, but the other students make fun of her, and it's not until her great aunt gives her some important advice that she learns to love her inventions. This is not the theme of the story. This is the main idea because it is specific to this one story. You are not going to read other stories about Rosie being an inventor and how important her great aunt is. So this is the main idea. It tells me the characters, tells me part of the problem, and it even gives me some of the solution. Our story has two different themes actually. So you're going to talk about never giving up. Rosie gets a little discouraged, but her great aunt says, you can do it. You're doing awesome. And she decides to go back to inventing. So she does not give up. It also talks about practice makes perfect. At first, her inventions they don't work. They're not what she wants them to be. But after she practices and after her great aunt gives her some advice, she knows that she can do it and she continues to work. These are the themes of our story. They are not specific to this story. You could read many books about never giving up, and you could read many books about practice making perfect. These are universal themes, so they're going to apply to me, to Miss Rapp, to Miss Davis, to all fourth grade students. They're going to apply to anyone who reads this story. You could come up with a situation in your life where you would need the theme of never giving up, or you would need the message that practice makes perfect. So some questions to help you find the theme as you are reading your stories, as you are working on your assignments this week. You could ask yourself, how did the character respond to the conflict or the challenge? Did the character make a good or bad choice? What happened to the character as a result of this choice? What can you learn from the character's decision? Did the character learn anything from their decisions? Did they come up with any solutions from their decisions? How can you apply that to your own life? Would you do the same thing as the character? Why or why not? And what do you think the author is trying to teach you from the events of this story? So, in your Google Classroom today, fourth graders, you are looking for something called Tuesday Theme, The Invisible Boy. When you open it, it will look like this. So your directions say to listen to the story, The Invisible Boy, and it is linked here. On slide 2, you're going to write a few words that describe what is the story about, what's going on in the story, who are your characters, what's your problem. On slide 2, you're also going to come up with the main idea. So you're going to use those few words that you wrote to describe what the story is about, and you're going to come up with a sentence that is the main idea. Your sentence should start with something like, the main idea of the story is, or the invisible boy is about. Those are two ways that you could start that sentence. And on slide 2, you're also going to come up with at least one theme that you heard in the story. Remember, your theme is your message or your lesson. And we talked about that different books can have different themes. So you may come up with one theme and another student may come up with another theme. And that doesn't mean that they're wrong or that you're wrong, but that means that different books can have more than one theme. So let's look at slide 2. So on number 1, you're going to write just a few words. What is the story about? Then in our chart down here at the bottom, you're going to write, what is the story? What is the main idea of the story? And remember, we talked about that your sentence should start with something like, the main idea is, the invisible boy is about. And then you're also going to come up with the theme of the story, and that should also be in complete sentences. And that question could start with something like, the theme of the story is, the theme of the invisible boy is. And remember that your theme, you can have more than one theme, so you could have multiple sentences in both of these answers. When you are done, make sure you click mark as done or submit, whatever option it gives you. In your reading classroom, under reading resources, I've also added an anchor chart. Now this one says theme anchor chart February because you do have another theme anchor chart from the first time we discussed this, but this is just an updated anchor chart that you can use this week as we are discussing theme and as you are working on assignments. And just a last reminder, fourth graders, that I do have office hours this afternoon from 2:30 to 3 o'clock. So if you need help with this theme activity or any assignments that we have worked on in the past couple weeks, I will be there. Good job, fourth graders. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you on Thursday.